Hi, I am going to do a quick video on how I set up solar for boondocking on my 1999 diesel Winnebago motorhome. So there are solar panels on top, and I have battery storage, and I have a couple of Jackeries. And I'll give you a complete rundown of how it's wired and what works and what doesn't. Stand by. Okay, I'm now standing on top of the RV, and let me tell you how this 1,000 watts of solar has evolved. These two solar panels were the very first two that I bought. They're both 100 watts each. Brand name is kind of irrelevant because the companies come and go, but they're different. These two are different than the next four. The next four, that's 400 watts of solar. It goes to the lithium ion phosphate batteries. I have 3 of those, 100 amp hour. I just put these two on this season, and they are 200 watts each, and they don't tilt up. All the others can tilt up, and I can point them towards the south, but I've discovered it's just not worth it. I get plenty of power. These two, this is 400 watts. It goes to a separate charge controller, and that goes to the lithium batteries. These 4 have a separate controller that's 400 watts total that goes to a separate controller that goes to the lithium batteries. And what happens is, so these 2 are wired separately from these 4, and those 2 are wired just to a Jackery. So the way they're all wired, I run the wires across the top of the RV, and this is the vent that goes behind the refrigerator. So there are 3 wires for 3 different charge circuits. So stand by and I'll show you how it goes down inside the back side of the refrigerator. Okay, so the power comes down from the top of that air vent down through this access panel. This is the back of the refrigerator, and there are 2 conduits that protect 2 of the wires. I couldn't get a 3rd one in here, so these 2 wires are just running bare behind the refrigerator. They come down, and mounted inside this storage area, there are 2 charge controllers. The wires come in, I had to drill holes, and then I run the wires up and over to where the battery compartment is. So hang on. Okay, so inside the RV, underneath the second step here, is the compartment where the batteries are. Oh, great. It's got a bunch of rodent poop on top of them. So they're called Siekon, S-I-E-K-O-N batteries. Paid 179 bucks for 2 of them, and one of them I bought for 225. I liked the first one so much I bought 2 more. Originally, this had 4 lead acid batteries, and one of these has as much power as 4 of those lead acid batteries. Oh man, I can't believe all this pack rat poop. Okay, so here's how it works. One circuit outgoing is to the regular 12 volt needs of the RV. And then there's an inverter for the stuff in the very front of the RV, like the television and navigation and that kind of stuff. But what I've done is I have really big wires that come off this middle battery. They're all hooked together in parallel. And then up here to a Harbor Freight inverter. It's mounted right above it. And from this inverter, I have 120 volts out. So when I turn this on, the entire RV is powered up, except I turn off the circuit panel, the refrigerator, the microwave, and the 2 air conditioners. Everything else is currently powered up, and I have never run out of power. And the only way I have to measure it is I look at what the voltage is on the batteries. Like right now it's charging in the sun, so I'm getting 14.2 volts. So it works really well. I've never run out of power. I can go a day without power, and it works great. So let me show you where it comes in for the Jackery. Hang on. Okay, so the very first 2 solar panels were hooked up to just this Jackery. But what I've done, I had so much extra power that once the Jackery's charged, I have a second charge controller here, so I can take this Anderson connector and plug it into this charge controller, and then I have a couple of alligator clips. I can charge a battery if I needed to. So like the engine battery, the RV, I could charge it. And what I did was I just ran wires through underneath the refrigerator from the back of the refrigerator. I mean, it's a little challenging. You have to be a contortionist, but it works really well. So the output of the Jackery, most important thing, my bathroom, so electric toothbrush, water pick, lighting, and then in this area is like my charging station. I have lighting hooked up, and then this power strip with, you know, I can charge my laptop, cell phone, all that kind of stuff. But everything else in the RV is hooked up off of 120 volt. Works great. Now let me tell you what doesn't work. All right, hang on just a second. Okay, so here's one thing that does not work. The problem with the super ultra cheap Harbor Freight inverter is it is not a pure sine wave inverter. I think it's a 2000 watt inverter. I bought it maybe 6 years ago before I got this RV, and it doesn't work for one thing that I really like. I like having an electric blanket. I heat up the bed before I get into it, and so what I do is I have a second Jackery. I have it plugged into 120 volts, so it's always charged at 100%, and then I turn on the bed heater, and it takes probably about, you know, less than 10% of the battery power of a Jackery to heat up the bed. So but I cannot use the inverter power because it's not clean power. It works perfectly fine with all my electronics. Every TV, everything works off of that cheap inverter, but an electric blanket does not, because it's not grounded or something, I don't know, it doesn't like it. So anyway, the Jackery works fine. So I keep the Jackery fully charged at all times, and then I run the bed heater off of it. So everything in the RV works great. I mean, I'm 100% off grid right now, working at the donkey rescue farm, and I absolutely love it. You know, what is my monthly electric bill? Zero. I love it. I love it because my home is in Colorado, and I pay ridiculous amounts of money for heating and cooling. And, you know, with an RV, you know exactly what you're using, you know, how much water, how much power, and I love this setup. Yeah, 1,000 watts is great. If you can have 1,000 watts, you can live off of it just fine. So anyway, love my RV, love my electrical setup. Anybody wants any details, drop me a note and I'll be glad to tell you everything I know. And I'm not an expert. I learned everything I know off some random guy on YouTube. All right, I forgot to mention one key thing in this setup. How do you get power to the RV? Well, let me show you. So the output is, you know, the inverter. I have this extension cord, and it goes down back into this cabinet where all the wiring is. It's an extension cord. Now hang on. Okay, so it's just an extension cord, but it's a very heavy extension cord because it could run up to a couple thousand watts. In fact, I've even used an electric space heater, which is 1,500 watts, and it did not kill the battery. So the extension cord comes over here. Now, my RV is a 50 amp, two-phase, 240 volt hookup, but with this adapter, this is a standard house 120 volt. This is an extension cord that's only this long, and it goes into this 50 amp plug. So it's a 50 amp to a 15 amp, which is just, this is something you do not want to do unless you know what you're doing, because, you know, if you turn on the air conditioner, you're going to fry this wire. So you don't want to do anything that takes more than 15 to 20 amps with this setup. But everything that I have, I kind of know how much power it uses. I've got the old internet connection up there, and everything works great. That thing only uses about 20 watts of power. So just experiment and see what works with you. But you know what? Everything has gotten better and cheaper since I started doing this, setting up the stuff on this about 5 years ago is when I bought my first solar panels. And only now do I have 1,000 watts, and I absolutely love it. And of course Titan loves it because he's digging underneath the tire of the RV. Yeah, he likes pack rats. All right, you have a good day. Bye.